Welcome to Talk About Tatooine. I'm Andrew,
I'm Nathan.
and we are twin brothers here to bring you what's new in nerddom and give colorful commentary on our favorite subjects. Welcome to our cantina. Grab a drink and settle in as we set course for realities beyond our own.
Cheers, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about Bad Batch episode 11 and 12. This covers Metamorphosis and the Outpost. But first, let's start off with our starter questions. Also, make sure you guys stick around towards the end of the episode. We have so much news coming down the tunnel for you guys concerning Warhammer, 10th edition, all that fun stuff. You guys are going to want to stick around and hear this.
What have you been watching recently?
I have been sticking to the classics and actually rewatching a lot of Star Wars content in anticipation for Ahsoka coming out later this year, I believe in August, which is kind of like a little bit of a spoiler for one of our pieces of news. So I have been going through specifically the rest of the Bad Batch. I've actually rewatched at this point all the way through until episode... Actually, I think I just watched The Outpost again today. So I've watched it multiple times now because I have not finished Bad Batch. So I'm watching it all the way through. And then once we do our episode on the finale, then I'm going to watch it. Like, I have not watched it yet. I'm very excited. I also have been rewatching Book of Boba Fett. Weirdly enough, I enjoyed it the second time through more.
Oh.
And I know a lot of people crapped on Book of Boba Fett, but
I think including us.
potentially, but I loved it. I'm just like watching through and I was like, why did I not like this? I love the soundtrack. Like, the music in that is an absolute banger. Just so good. And the final episode with the Rancor battle against the Scorpec droids, I know they're not called Scorpecs, but that's, my brain's all Warhammered out right now.
I didn't even register that as like not a correct term. I was like, well, yeah, of course there's Scorpec droids. No, they remind me of the Sith battle droids from the Old Republic era.
They've got big Sith energy. But I loved that fight. I thought that was super cool. It's like a little kaiju battle going on in the streets of Tatooine. So I really like that. I've been watching through that. It's been a good time.
I just watched one of the movies that's been on my watch list for approximately 12 years, which is Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which I believe came out in 2011, if I'm remembering correctly.
Wow.
And it finally came onto one of the streaming services because the movies have always interested me in the fact that I really want to watch them. I really like the concept. Also, I think it's like Malfoy plays a very Malfoy character. The actor, he's like super mean to animals. I'm like, oh, he's really getting typecast as like a real dick. But it was a really fun movie. Andy Serkis, I believe, does the mocap for Caesar the Ape, and Andy Serkis is probably in my top 10 of favorite actors of all time. He only says about 3 or 4 words in the entire movie, which is kind of the whole point of the movie, is that Caesar becomes or gains the intelligence of a human, and not just a human, a smart human. It's a good watch. The 2 sequels that have come out since then aren't on any streaming services yet. Just as a note to anyone, whoever's like, oh, is this on a streaming service that I have? Where you want to go is justwatch.com. Type in your movie and it will tell you where you can rent, buy, and stream any movie or show that you're looking for. Fun fact.
That is a fun fact indeed. Go ahead and tell us what you have been playing recently.
I have been playing Dark Tide by myself.
Sorry for the dog interruption. Go ahead and continue again and tell us what you were playing.
I've been playing Warhammer 40,000 Dark Tide because I'm a Warhammer nut, and Dark Tide is really, really fun. It's a really good challenge, and it doesn't require a lot of brain power, but it occupies enough of my brain space to just have a good time, man. Sometimes I just want to get lost in the melee and see heads fly, and there are very few games that let me do that. Gears 5, Dark Tide, Call of Duty Zombies, that's a classic one. It's like horde shooters. Those are my things. And I mean, as a squad, that's what we play a lot of. We do some multiplayer, but we do a lot of PvE. I mean, that's our jam. I mean, sometimes I'm more of a PB and jelly man, but I like jam too. This has been Dumbass Jokes with Andrew. Please take it away.
No, I gotta keep those in there. That's like the fun stuff. That's what people are really here for, is the dumb jokes.
Why am I like this?
Because we're both very strange people. Anyways, I guess not just what I've been doing, but what you have been doing as well, is we played a huge 2v2 Warhammer game. This was like almost what was it? It was a 6,000 point game, I believe, because we all fielded. Yes, because we all fielded 1,500 points. The Space Marines of the Warbirds chapter aligned themselves with an unlikely ally, a small band of orcs being led by Ghazghkull Thraka. The orcs are just looking for a fight, so the outnumbered Space Marines are able to convince them to help. Right against them is a Tyranid splinter fleet and the strike force of Necrons, led by the Silent King. The Space Marines and the orcs got their butts whooped.
Dude, we got destroyed. You had a massive board presence. The orc horde really showed up, and you're like, yeah, this is 1,500 points of orcs. And I showed up in a very haphazard force of Space Marines. I went too heavy on the vehicles and not heavy enough on the actual objective taking capability. And the thing is I was running Dark Angels. So you're like, oh, cool. So you're running Ravenwing and Deathwing, the first and second companies. Nope. I was not. My Terminators do not have arms. I got sick and couldn't finish them. So I have 20 Terminators with no arms, none of which with matching paint jobs. I am magnetizing their melee weapon options because I bought a bunch of melee weapons off of Etsy. And I don't know if you can tell, but the arm is actually too small.
Ooh, oh no.
It's just a touch too small for their body. And now that they've come out with the new 10th edition model, it's not actually out yet, but it will be out soon. They increase the overall height and size of the Terminators by like 10 to 20%. So now that they're the actual hulking monsters, so I have 20 models that are too small with no arms, and something we're going to cover later in one of the videos, they have lost all tactical significance.
That is a big bummer.
I got tabled after turn 2. They took me to Pound Town.
Yeah, and that was hard to recover from because you got swarmed by the Tyranids. I was taking most of my force to attack the Necrons, and I put up my Dukes until the Wa ran out, because then I started getting absolutely shredded off the board. I fielded over 80 models in that game, and most of them were boys and shooters and things like that, and they were too spread out because of the Necrons' forces. We had so many in reserve, and I was like, absolutely not. If he just deploys those into my back lines 9 inches away, I'm going to get destroyed. So I was like, heck no to that. So I had my guys way too far spread out. And so when it came around to that turn 3, I realized I need to be moving my guys onto objectives, and I couldn't get them there fast enough. There was too much board. And it was just like, oh man, and then all my guys were separated and they just got picked apart. I couldn't engage anybody in combat. I couldn't lock any shooting units away. And I could not kill the Silent King. I couldn't land the finishing blow. So that was a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah. It was not a great game. We still had a lot of fun.
It was really fun.
It was a ton of fun. I was so exhausted after that day because I also did all the cooking because I was the one hosting. As some of our viewers may know, I've been on a broken foot for like the past 6 months, and I didn't know it was broken. So I'm like just now trying to recover from that. But like being in the kitchen and cooking, even with like my more supportive shoes on, I was out for the count the next week. I could barely walk. And that's, I actually decided to go on crutches, and crutches have been extremely helpful. Anyway, we talked about it a little bit. What hobby work have you gotten done?
So my hobby work took a turn. We mentioned earlier in the episode that I was gone on vacation, which is why we took a little bit of a break. I went to Disneyland for the first time. And let me tell you what, I learned a lot about going to Disney and really enhancing the Disney experiences. So I want to share a little bit of that with you. First,
Hit me.
I loved Galaxy's Edge. The Flight of the
Yes.
Falcon and Rise of the Resistance weren't like the biggest thrill rides ever. They're not like roller coasters or anything,
Mhm.
but the special effects in those are so cool. Really feels immersive. I absolutely loved it, especially Rise of the Resistance. I heard a few people, they were kind of like, it's okay. I absolutely loved it. Like they have these different projectors. So like when the stormtroopers are firing at you and they're missing, it actually looks like the lasers are like taking gouges out of the wall. Kylo Ren at one point gets on top of the lift that you're on and he cuts down through the ceiling. And the whole time I'm like, how did they make it look like the lightsaber is coming through the ceiling? And it's super cool. The ride is not on track. So you're kind of riding around in this like omnidirectional buggy with like several other people. And it's really, really cool. The Flight of the Falcon was fun because there was only four of us riding, and so two of us were piloting and two of us were gunning. There's apparently that ride holds up to six people, but the last two end up being engineers, and they basically have like one button to press, so you're just kind of
Yeah.
like whatever. But that was pretty
It's
fun.
yeah.
It was hard. It was really hard. Also, if I had biggest takeaways in kind of nuggets of wisdom I'd like to share is one, bring sunscreen and apply it multiple times. I did not apply it multiple times. I got that first box checked off. I applied sunscreen in the morning, but my shoulders are toasted. They're actually about the same color as the outside of this sweatshirt.
Ooh, a nice
I had a
salmon.
really good time. Yeah, nice salmon. I loved the heat. That was fantastic because we went in April. It is April right now, so if you guys didn't catch that. But April is also my next thing. It's spring break for literally half of the country throughout the month of April. So don't go in that month. There's too many people. So we had a lot of fun, but like I think we would have enjoyed it more if the park wasn't as packed. So I think next time we'll go at a not as quite heavy month. So that was like kind of a little bit of a bummer, but like we still like went around to different sites in LA and we ended up going to Universal as well. And the studio tour to Universal is super cool. The Super Mario World ride, which is like a new attraction to Universal, is not worth the wait. Don't do it. We waited in line for like 2 hours for that because it was a brand new ride. Everyone was super excited for it. It's very interactive. It's like you're playing a Mario game while you're like on the ride. But it wasn't worth waiting 2 hours. So that was a little bit of a bummer. Universal was actually completely sold out when we got there. The lines were super long. Disney is way better at handling the lines and the volume of people. Universal was not equipped to handle that many people. So that was something we learned a few times, but super excited to go. We're hoping to go again, hopefully to Disney World over in Florida, maybe sometime in the colder months. We're recording in Washington State, so that's going to give us a good excuse to kind of get out of the cold when next winter comes around.
That's awesome. Like I said, I haven't really done a lot of hobby work. I have big plans. I have big plans, but I've done nothing.
Same. I have a lot of like bases coming from my model so I can magnetize everybody, but I buy them from a shop that's Hoplite Game Studios. Really like their stuff, but they don't have. I believe they don't have a standing inventory because they take forever to ship these out. I believe they get the orders, they print them, and then they sell them. So they're like handling a ton of different orders and things like that before they get there. So it's a lot of work, but I'm really excited to get those because one of the problems with my current orc army is a lot of these are older orc sculpts and they're too small, just like your Terminators. My boys, the base is too small. It needs to be on a 32 millimeter base instead of a 28, and the height doesn't right either. All right, guys, we are going to get into our complete review of the next two Bad Batch episodes. Yes, we are going to review 2 episodes in this one because there's so much to cover right now, and we really want to make sure we're keeping up with everything for you guys. So make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe if you guys are watching on YouTube, and make sure you guys follow on Anchor, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts now as well, or wherever you guys are currently listening. This is your official spoiler warning, so if you have not watched these episodes yet, now is your chance to eject. Let's get into it. The Bad Batch are recruited to find a missing vessel. Upon finding the vessel, Omega points out that the ship is holding Kaminoan cloning technology. They have stumbled upon an Imperial research vessel. The batch then encounters the cargo of the ship, a cloned Zillo beast. As an energy-loving creature with blaster-resistant plates, the Bad Batch's weapons are useless against it. The squad is able to escape the beast, but end up setting it loose on the planet below. The squad takes the Marauder and attempts to slay the beast from the air with no effect. 3 Venator-class ships arrive in system. The Empire arrives on scene to capture the Zillo beast. Having fought this beast on Coruscant during the Clone Wars, the Imperial forces had the intel on how to bring down the Zillo beast. The Empire quickly destroys the power plant, stuns the beast with a beam weapon, then a group of commandos come in and round up the villagers. We don't know what happens with these villagers, but they are, so far, not to be seen. The Bad Batch escape and are the only ones who know about the return of the Zillo beast. Andrew, go ahead and hit us with your rating 1 out of 10.
9 out of 10. Seriously, first off, when the Clone Wars arc of that originally featured the Zillo Beast happened, it was one of the best arcs ever.
Oh, so good.
It starts out with the Republic dropping this like weapon of mass destruction that's like this giant EMP nuke thing on a droid army, and it just totally eviscerates them. But the blast actually opens up, I think they're on Malastare, and it opens up this giant crater in the planet's surface, and the Zillo Beast, which is significantly larger than the one we see in this episode, just like terrorizes the troopers. They're like, oh my gosh, this, like lightsabers can't cut through its armor. And immediately Palpatine is like, well, cool, I would like to order one of those, please and thank you. But anyway, like Godzilla and kaiju type episodes are like always my favorite. They're so cool. Star Wars does big creatures so well. It's so fun.
Oh, yeah.
I love monster episodes. Other IPs, such as like Warhammer, don't really have a monster compendium at all. Like, the only like big beasties you see are like the big avatars of each faction. They're not just like wild animals. They're always like, oh, this is a warp beast of corn or something. That's not like corn, CORN, for those of you who aren't turbo nerds and don't follow Warhammer. That's KHORNE, the blood god, corn. Yeah, I loved it. 9 out of 10.
So good. I actually agree. I gave this a 9 out of 10 as well. I loved this episode. Not only do we get to see more of the Zillo Beast, which again, I totally agree with your assessment. When we got to see the Zillo Beast in the Clone Wars, I was a huge fan. I was like, I can't believe they only gave this thing like just a little bit of screen time. I'm like, when can we see more of this? So I was super excited that it came back. It harkens back to the Clone Wars, so I love it when they tie those things in. That's probably one of my favorite things that the writers over at Star Wars and Lucasfilm and Disney are doing right now is they are taking every bit of content that is coming out and they are working and weaving it all together. So it really forms a cohesive story because they've got to. The universe is too vast in this IP for them to not give it the absolute attention and details that it needs. And really, I just love to see like how Palpatine has just got his fingers in everything. Like everything is by his design. He really shows off that he is one of the best Sith Lords to ever conquer the galaxy.
Yeah, it's why he's the culmination of the rule of two. I think some people are a little critical of like his relationship with Vader and his relationship with the Inquisitors, being like, hey, like this violates the rule of two. He like, because the Inquisitors are basically Sith. To say that they're not is a formality. Like it's a technicality. To say that the Inquisitors are not Sith is a technicality. But that's really what they are. They are the grunts of Palpatine's tiny little Sith army. And like he sees himself as the epitome in the resolution of the rule of two. Palpatine has no intention of giving power to Vader. He's like, no, this stops with me. We're done. Like Darth Bane's rule of two, it's over. Awesome. Let's move on to favorite moments now that we've talked about our ratings for the show. Nathan, hit us.
So one thing that I really loved about this was a very small scene where the first commando we see step off that carrier is potentially Scorch from Delta Squad, who we have seen earlier in the series. Dave Filoni, I love you. I love you. These are the Easter eggs I live for. And of course, the actual Zillo Beast coming out. Again, I'm just a huge fan of that. I love the creatures of Star Wars, but I love it when the writers are actively working at bringing the aspects of legends back into canon. Huge fan of that. Absolute favorite. I love you, Scorch. Hope to see Delta Squad in the future.
Without actually saying verbally that clone commando is Scorch, I think it's 99% confirmed that it is. Because we do see Delta Squad. Delta Squad is canon. They are shown in Star Wars The Clone Wars in their entirety after they retrieved the body of a dead Jedi who literally got impaled on Savage Opress's horns. Totally brutal. It's a kid's show, but sure, that's something we can put in there. 99.99%, I would guess that is for sure Scorch. Some things that leave it a little bit up in the air. I mean, we're talking about less than a percent chance that this is not Scorch. We don't hear his voice. Or if we do, it's voiced by Dean Bradley Baker, not the original voice for Scorch, which I don't even know who that is. I'd have to look it up. And we don't see him with Delta Squad. If we saw him with Delta Squad, we'd be like, that's him. Let's go. That's actually something I would like to talk about on the podcast someday, is like the zealotry and the absolute devotion we see out of the Republic commandos as opposed to the regular clones. Because the commandos, they are a different breed. I mean, they literally are a different breed in some regards. They're trained to be different and to be better than the other clones in pretty much every regard. They're a little bit different than the advanced recon commandos or the ARC troopers, who are basically commandos because they're like crazy in the head. Like they take these just insane risks, whereas like the actual Republic commando squads are more of these like Black Ops special forces teams. And we really see that anytime any of them show up, you're like, oh crap.
For sure.
One of my favorite things, the Return of the Zillo Beast is such an awesome addition to the Star Wars story. It's unclear if Palpatine's experiment like really comes to fruition, because he's been working on these guys for a long time. So at some point he was successful at cloning them, which is what he wanted to do. But really, the reason behind that is because he wants to make armor, starship holes out of their scales, their skin. I don't really know. It's scales. I'm really interested to see where the Zillo clone is eventually used. I also want to know where the original Zillo creature is. Does it dies, right? Yeah, it dies.
Yeah, they gas it to death, don't they?
I think so. No one can escape the war crimes of the Republic. Anyway, I definitely didn't recognize it as a Zillo Beast at first, so I was like, what is this crazy creature? I expected it to like hop into someone and like pop out of their chest like from the Alien movie, which again, that would have been so inappropriate. At first, I thought it was a creature called a Vornsker, which is a type, like imagine like a wolf or a panther who specifically hunts force sensitive things and things that are connected to the force. I first thought it was that because of Mount Tantus shows up in this story, and therefore like Zahn's Heir to the Empire novel, like all these different things start popping up into my head. I'm like, oh, like, are we going to see the Islamari? Are we going to see like more of what's going on in Tantus? Are we going to see Jedi clones? Are we going to see the first renditions of like Palpatine clones? We don't get to see anything. But speaking of Mount Tantus, I really, really enjoyed the parallels between the Empire and like Nazi Germany are staggering and make for super compelling television, especially in the case of like Dr. Hemlock and his reflection with like the Nazi science divisions. Like they even like round up a bunch of people who saw the Zillo Beast. I'm like, this is dark. Like those kind of things can kind of fly over children's heads. They're like, I don't really understand the implications of that, but we understand the implications of that. And you're like, oh, it's so dark. Oh gosh.
Yeah, you're like, they're dead. every single one of them is dead.
Yeah, it's really hard to imagine that these people are going to have a good fate. I think their stories are over.
For
But
sure. With
yeah,
that, what do you think is going to happen kind of like coming up and potentially into the next season?
I really want to see the rest of Delta Squad. Boss, Fixer, maybe even Sev. If we see the rest of Delta Squad minus Sev, that is essentially canonizing the story from the Republic Commando video game where Sev is actually lost on the Battle of Kashyyyk. That would be amazing because it totally tore my heartstrings. I was like a little kid and I was like, I'm having these emotions and I don't know how to deal with them. Like, Sev is my friend. I've grown attached to Sev, and now he's dead. that Sorry. That's what I hope will happen in the rest of the season. To those of you who know, so I wrote this before the season finale came out. So those of you who have seen the rest of the season, you know exactly whether or not I'm right or wrong. And I'm not going to tell.
I was going to say, because I haven't seen it yet, so nobody knows. I
Oh.
have a theory that, well, I haven't, yeah,
Hmm.
so it's going to be interesting. I have a theory that the Zillo Beast is going to make an appearance, but not in this season. I know, which is kind of a cop out. But I think that like later, I think because the writers are trying to intertwine everything, I think specifically they're setting the Zillo Beast back into the setting so that they can bring those scales back and bring the science division into another series. I think it's going to be like a special infantry based armor. Specifically, I think it's going to be a special armor for Imperial commandos, mostly because we see a lot of Imperial commando activity. And I think they would be the perfect like test subjects for these, because if Zillo Beast plating is used, that means it's blaster resistant, energy resistant, lightsaber resistant, and that's the perfect tool for hunting Jedi and the enemies of the Empire. I almost said enemies of the Republic. The Republic's dead, yo. So,
They're dead.
but that's kind of what I think is going to happen. I think they're going to tie that in either in the next season of Bad Batch, or they're going to tie it into a different show or movie entirely.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens because we see a lot of different armor developments through different shows. Are you caught up on The Mandalorian?
I have not seen this week's episode because we flew back in on Wednesday and I haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
Okay, I have more things that I cannot say to you. This is fun. But you have seen Star Wars Rebels, correct?
Yes,
We see
multiple times.
the Imperial Super Commandos are wearing like basically improved stormtrooper armor, but they're not wearing Beskar. And when they finally get into a toe-to-toe fight with other Mandalorians, they get destroyed because one, their armor is less effective. The only reason they are able to put up a fight at all is because they had this like super weapon that basically uh, electrically conducted to Beskar alloyed armor and fried the people inside, which is again
Brutal.
we should do a top 10 war crimes episode from Star Wars. That would be
We
a
should.
fun idea. That would be so
And
cool.
and it will literally all come from the kids series. Like it's going to come from Rebels, Clone Wars, Bad Batch. It's going to be all the animated series. They're like, this is actually marketed for children and young adults. And it's going to be like, and now we're counting war crimes. Like,
Oh my gosh.
oh,
You know
that's
what?
going to be
I'm
great.
putting it on the schedule. Let's see. Episode 26, top 10 Star Wars war crimes.
Dude, cheers to that, brother.
Cheers.
Oh, yeah.
America. Wait.
America. So we've got one more
Yeah.
section to kind of filter into before we finish out Metamorphosis. I'll let you guys know right now, we're not going to do a least favorite part because we both rated this. Oh my gosh, 3 times the charm. We both rated this a 9 out of 10. We both basically said the same thing, on the edge of our seats the whole time. Didn't really have a least favorite part, so we're going to skip that. But I want you to hit us with some of that sweet, sweet lore, and then we'll get into the outpost.
I've kind of already spoiled it a little bit, so also if we want to like cut some of this or cut some of the earlier stuff ramblings I had about Clone Commandos, feel free. But we're going to talk about Clone Commandos. The Clone Commandos are radically loyal to the Empire and serve as elite guards to high-ranking Imperial officials such as Dr. Hemlock and the operations at the Tantus facility. This is on the same tier as Project Stardust. They are elite. They are crazy, radically loyal to the Empire. Clone Commandos were bred for high-value missions that generally required a certain amount of infiltration and danger. Due to the small nature of these squads, typically in groups of 4, these elite units were able to perform special missions that the Clone Legions could not perform, including espionage, assassination, advanced recon, and tragically, the retrieval of fallen Jedi bodies during the Clone Wars. Delta Squad, which we've talked about, is one such clone commando squad that was first introduced in Star Wars Republic Commando, the video game, and was brought back into canon during the Clone Wars when Savage Opress, a sorcery-enhanced dark side user, rampaged through clone and Jedi alike, leaving behind only bodies. Delta Squad was assigned to covertly insert themselves into the battlefield and retrieve the bodies of the Jedi burial. And we see them return those bodies so that the Jedi can lay them to rest. How was that?
What a freaking bummer. That was amazing. I really liked your reading of that. That was fantastic. I definitely dropped something while the little cap I was playing with in my hands because I have the inability to not do anything with my hands while people are talking.
Right? I've been playing with this stick like it's a wand the whole time. I'm like, ibidi
Yeah, that's perfect. Now I have a pen. The boys come to die. There's a reel of a guy who does Owen Wilson as Voldemort, and it's hilarious. Anyways,
wow.
Thank you so much for sharing us that wonderful chunk of lore. We love the lore. We are here for it. We breathe it. We bleed it. We're now going to make our transition into our episode review of The Outpost. So make sure you guys stick around. This is your kind of secondary spoiler warning, and we're going to get into kind of the happenings, and then we'll go through this next one a little bit quicker. We find Crosshair assigned to an outpost on the tundra of Barton 4. The clones guarding this outpost are put under the charge of Lieutenant Nolan, an officer who has an open and very strong dislike of clones. Crosshair teams up with Mayday to protect the depot from attacks from local raiders. Crosshair wounds one of the raiders and begins his pursuit. Crosshair and Mayday find a tunnel that the raiders have been using to sneak past the Imperial defenses. These two are sent on a suicide mission to recover stolen crates from the raiders. Either way, the lieutenant wins. Either they succeed and get the cargo, or fail and die. These two are able to take the raider camp by surprise, gunning many of them down and detonating a cache of mines to take care of the rest. Crosshair and Mayday discover the contents of the stolen crates. Brand new stormtrooper armor. This outpost has been shipping newly minted armor while the clones get along with ramshackle plasteel plates. Soon after this discovery, an avalanche wounds Mayday. Crosshair takes him back to base only to have him pass away right as they arrive back at base. Nolan claims giving him medical attention would be a waste of Imperial resources. Having ultimately failed their objective and returning with the crates, Lieutenant Nolan berates Crosshair for his apparent incompetence. Crosshair takes his first step of defiance and shoots Lieutenant Nolan. His act of rebellion has begun. Captured and carried away, Crosshair now remains in Imperial custody, a prisoner of war, and is transported to the science facility at Mount Tantus. Andrew, go ahead and hit us with your rating 1 out of 10.
This episode was awesome. It was one of my favorites. I gave it an 8 out of 10, and the only notes I wrote are good soldiers follow orders. It is the mantra that Crosshair's been saying. He's like, well, the Jedi have to be evil. That's why he carried out Order 66. He's like, because good soldiers follow orders. Because he has this, and now we see that he has this inherent belief that the Republic and then the Empire is inherently doing the right thing by the clones. The Republic has earned his respect, so that is why he orders he follows out such a heinous order like Order 66. Like they knew that something like that could have happened, and he's like, okay, it's time to go. Let's kill these Jedi. But when he sees the blatant disregard for his brothers, not specifically Clone Squad 99, but Commander Mayday, whose name is a total foreshadowing of his fate. Very tragic. We see it's like he finally snapped, and the whole episode you're rooting for it. You're like, just shoot him in the back, like, or shoot him in the face. Just shoot him in the face, like, because Nolan doesn't care if they die. Lieutenant Nolan, he's just like, I'm not a clone, therefore I am better than you. It's one of the times we see explicitly the bias towards humans that the Empire exhibits. Hopefully we will see more and more of this, but I don't know if you've noticed, dear listener, you probably have, because you're very smart and very beautiful, or handsome, whichever adjective you prefer. There are no aliens in the Empire. There are alien citizens, but as far as staff in the Empire, there's no one. Well, you might be thinking, what about that guy who kind of looks like the Muppet with the trunk dealie from episode 4? I don't even know what it's called, but like, well, he was an informant. He was basically a mole, even though he kind of looks like a mole too, which is kind of funny. I'm sure that actually was
kind of on the
now
nose.
That I say, yeah, it's a little on the nose. Thanks, George. But that's the kind of role we see from aliens or non-humans in the Galactic Empire is you can be informants at best. We will throw you aside when we're done with you. Same thing goes for clones. It's like they don't acknowledge them as people.
Absolutely. This was another good one. We finally get to see Crosshair, and I was saying in earlier episodes, I was like, hey guys, do we remember that Crosshair's here? It's been like 6 or 7 episodes since we've gotten to see him last. And then his character arc takes a dramatic turn. I gave this an 8 out of 10, just like you. I was super happy to see this episode. At first, I was a little worried because I was like, the last Crosshair episode, we see Commander Cody defect, and that was the last time we saw him. So I was kind of like, oh, is this going to be kind of like that one? Because that one, you could kind of see what was going on. You could see how the plot was progressing pretty naturally. And this one, you definitely kind of see some of that predictability still. But again, you're rooting for Crosshair again. You're not just like, oh, he's with the Empire. You're like actively like, all right, I hope he shoots Nolan in the face.
Which would have been so brutal.
Damn.
Head snaps back with a bolter burn on the middle of his forehead, his third eye, but you didn't see that coming. What a line. What a line. Let's talk about favorite moments from this episode.
I actually thought the betrayal of Crosshair at the end was my favorite part, because my theories leading up to this was actually that Crosshair was going to be loyal to the Empire the whole time. And he betrays the Empire, and he finally rebels. And I was like, no way. I thought he was going to like pass out, and then he was going to kind of like subtly walk away from the Empire. But he was just like, no, I'm going to expedite this process. I'm going to shoot my commander. Yes. And I was like, yes, that's so good. And he's so exhausted. Like all he can manage to do before he literally passes out is to take this guy out. And then they just cart him away because he's like, I've just been in a firefight. I basically almost got exploded. I survived an avalanche. I carried my very short-term buddy who is now dead all the way back to base. And he's like, I'm done with it. Like you've already made me turn against my old team. And he thought he was doing the right thing the whole time. And then he's just like, over and over and over and over again, he's just getting absolutely crapped on. So that was probably my favorite part. I love to see it. I'm really hoping, again, I have not seen the season finale yet, but I'm really hoping something good happens with Crosshair.
I have to say the same thing. Like seeing Crosshair finally snap, because the entire episode you're thinking he's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. Like he stayed with the Empire when they enacted Order 66. He stayed with the Empire when they ordered him to hunt his brothers. He stayed with the Empire when he got his face burnt off chasing after his brothers. He stayed with his brothers he stayed with the Empire even after they left him to die on Camino. He came back. And then finally, it was like, this was the straw that broke the camel's back. And the entire time you're thinking, is he really going to do it? Is he really going to do it? Like he stayed with them this entire time. Like, he is a good soldier, and good soldiers follow orders, right? But he's like, nope, I've had enough of this. And we don't even see that it's like, it's not even like a full redemption. We don't see he's like, oh, I renounce the Empire. It's like, no, he just wanted to kill this one dude. He's like, I understand that this is going to get me in a lot of trouble, but I'm going to murder this guy. I'm going to murder my CO. And if one of us is not going to walk out of here, it's going to be him. Whether or not we see more come of that from Crosshair, I will be very interested, because this is the start. This is the start of Crosshair's redemption arc. Like, if he's not dead, we can see him come back.
With all that being said, what do you think is going to happen next?
It's really hard to see where Crosshair is going to go from here, because this is a Crosshair episode. I don't even think we see the Batch in this episode at all. We just see Crosshair. And we've seen other beats of the Batch in earlier episodes. Echo gets his own episode. That's when he like goes away to join Commander Rex and his force. We see Omega get her own episode in the ruins. We see, let's see, Wrecker gets his on Kashyyyk. Tech gets his on the races on Boonta Eve. Does Hunter get an episode?
I mean, Hunter's sort of the main guy, so I mean, sort of, but not really, I guess. He's just kind of there.
He's just kind of there. I mean, he's the squad. I wouldn't call him the main character, but he's the squad leader. He's probably the most boring of all the Batch characters, because he's just like, I have enhanced senses, which he's like, oh, TIE fighters are coming. And then 2 seconds later, TIE fighters show up. It's like, wow, really, your gift of foresight is so helpful. Sorry. I don't mean to totally crap on Hunter, but then I just did. So sorry. Let's see. Theories. We talked about Crosshair. I really want to see what's going on with Tantus. It is hard to talk about Mount Tantus and not also talk about Thrawn and the Emperor, because that's who finds Mount Tantus in Legends, is Grand Admiral Thrawn. And we know Thrawn's coming back in other series because he shows up in Rebels. We know he's going to be in the Ahsoka show because he gets name dropped back in Mando season 2. I just want to see him. And this is most likely the place where the Imperial cloners and later the Imperial remnant are going to seek to clone the Emperor under the command of Grand Admiral Thrawn. It would not shock me if the fate of the Bad Batch also has repercussions felt in The Mandalorian. Even though these events are taking place 30 standard years apart, it feels,
I think, over 30 years.
Yeah, those ripples are definitely being felt in the live action series that we're seeing. It's all connected, people.
What I think is going to happen next is, so Crosshair's been captured, but this kind of throws a wrench in the theories I had already, because I was like, I'm pretty sure Crosshair is going to kill Hunter, and now he's actively reaching out, and I guess that happens in kind of a future episode, but he's changing. It's hard for me to see my theory even becoming true at all at the end of the series with Crosshair killing Hunter at this point, because honestly, I think it's more likely at this point that Crosshair is going to get taken back into the Batch.
Hit me with that lore hammer, my brother.
All right, guys. One big theme we see take place in the Outpost is the introduction of Stormtrooper armor. The Empire has just signed into law its new Stormtrooper bill. The clones are being phased out rapidly from active duty positions to be replaced by the Imperial Stormtrooper. In the Outpost, we see Crosshair and Mayday discover shipments of newly minted Imperial Stormtrooper armor. This armor was developed by the Imperial Department of Military Research. With its iconic white plates, platoons of stormtroopers were to represent the purity of the Empire, later underpinning the disdain Imperials had for non-human species. Made up of 18 individual plastoid plates over a black body glove, the armor allowed for mobility in its soldiers and marginal protection against only glancing blaster shots. The chest plate was fitted with environmental controls, allowing the Stormtrooper to be deployed throughout the galaxy and be effective in multiple climates. The body glove was vacuum sealed and could give the trooper several minutes of survivability if subjected to the vacuum of space. The helmet worn by the Stormtroopers came with air filtration, built-in comlink, and a visor that accommodated poor sight conditions. The helmet offered a built-in heads-up display so Stormtroopers could remain aware of energy cell levels of their blasters, targeting diagnostics, and environmental readings. Then, guys, we will go into just our least favorite parts really quick, if applicable. So, Andrew, do you have anything to add for kind of our finisher before we go into news from the HoloNet?
I don't really have a lot that I didn't like about this episode. Like, I'm trying to think, because like even the slow moments were underpinned by a lot of suspense. Because if there was a slow moment with Crosshair, we saw him kind of brooding, and we were like, what is he thinking? Like, what could be going through his head now that he's off of his medical leave from being basically almost killed on Camino? What's going on with that? Or like the moments after the raid attacks when they're going through the caves, those are slow, but like immediately Crosshair steps on a mine and you have to watch as Mayday helps him disarm it. And Mayday's a little cavalier about that. Like that whole exchange is just fascinating, but also shows just like the brutality of war, especially guerrilla warfare, which is eventually what the Empire succumbs to because no one wins a guerrilla war. The United States couldn't do it. The Empire couldn't do it. Yeah, I didn't really have a lot of least favorites. I hope that's okay.
That's totally fine. My least favorite is sort of kind of what the writers intended. Really, just Lieutenant Nolan being alive in general was my least favorite part. So I'm glad he died because they basically resolved that lowlight at the end of the episode. But it really shows that the writers did a good job at making us feel negatively about Lieutenant Nolan because everybody knows the clones are the good guys. Everyone knows we love them. So they were like, hey, if we just like make this guy an absolute like overt dick to everybody, then everyone's going to feel great when Crosshair like has his little moment in Rebellion and we shoot him. Like it's just they had a low light in there on purpose to like I think make people a little bit mad and then make us feel better when he died. So a little bit of conflict and resolution there. Nice work, writers. Appreciate it.
Here's the thing: is the writers for the Clone Wars Bad Batch, they did such a good job with making fan favorites. Everyone loves the clones. Ahsoka starts out as one of the most annoying characters ever written. And now she's in the top 2 of favorite Star Wars characters of all time. Like she's so cool. They really know what they're doing when they write good characters that are likable and characters that are really, really unlikable. I really enjoyed them. I mean, yeah, that's why I gave it an 8.
All right, brother. Let's get into news from the HoloNet.
Games Workshop, which they're releasing so much content, but here's some Games Workshop news. They've released a new system pinning box sets against each other. So in the new Combat Patrol system, so you can buy Combat Patrols, which is like a series of units. These are typically really good deals. This is where you're going to see the biggest discounts on brand new minis is in these big boxes. Usually you get probably one vehicle, maybe some fast attack, and a lot of troops, and probably 1 to 2 HQs. It is a finished army right out of the box. Problem with the old ones is that they weren't very balanced, but now they are balancing them. We see the Combat Patrol boxes in the Boarding Patrol, which are different. They sound similar, but they are different. They're meant to fight each other. So this is going to make for hopefully some more balanced and also quicker games of 40K. Nathan, how long was our game of Warhammer 40,000?
I would like the court to know that it was over a 8-hour period. That is all.
No further questions. But now the court has been adjourned. Now you just pick a box, and that's your army. You build it, you paint it, and you play it. Ideally, GW is balancing these sets for far more quicker games of 40K because it's an all-day affair. I had to plan lunch and dinner, which was great. The food was awesome.
It was really good.
I did like potatoes in clarified butter ghee. That's what ghee is clarified butter, and then I made like a breakfast casserole out of it with like tons of bacon. So it was gluten free. There was actually quite a bit of veggies in it as well. So I just loaded it up with onions and peppers. And, oh yeah, it was so good. But that's not why we're here. Nathan, hit us with that Game Pass update.
So you guys know we love video games just as much as we love TV, movies, and tabletop games as well. So we're going to hit you guys with some video game news coming up. So Game Pass, and this may improve. Actually, this will improve. Let's think positively here. This will improve your opinions of Andrew and I. We are both Xbox fans. So take that as you will. Love us even more for it. But Game Pass Ultimate is a huge, huge deal. Gives you access to an absolute ton of games, more games that like we could ever actually play. So but we just wanted to update you guys on new games coming to Game Pass. And there's a good one at the end here. So first few that they had mentioned on the Game Pass update was Loop Hero. It has currently already come out, and this is on console and PC. Another game was Iron Brigade. This one is available on cloud and console, released on April 6th. So they have basically 3 different areas that they can post games currently. They can be played on console, they can be played on PC, and they can be also played via cloud services. So that's a newer addition, but good to know because some of these games are available in all 3, some of them are not. And so we'll be notating that as well.
Correct.
Game number 3 is Ghostwire Tokyo. That is available on cloud and PC, but only available on the next gen series. So Series X and Series S. That is released April 12th. So that was 2 days ago at the time of this recording. NHL 23 is coming to console. That's available with EA Play April 13th. So yesterday at the time of this recording. And then the big one, a game I've currently been looking forward to for a very long time, Minecraft Legends, is going to be available on cloud gaming, console, and PC. So it's not just next-gen consoles. I can play out of my old, like, just crappy Xbox One first-generation refurbished piece of garbage. But that's coming out on April 18th, so 4 days away from when we are recording this. By the time this episode launches, it will be 2 days away. So we're super excited about that.
Yeah.
We've also got some mobile games that we're actually planning on doing some more separate non-podcast material about. So I did want to throw these both in because you guys are going to see more videos on our YouTube channel, which is Talk About Tatooine. Make sure you guys go and subscribe, where we are actually going to be testing out different mechanics of the game. So Call of Duty Mobile has a new season that's currently out. So that means new maps, new skins, but make sure you guys be on the lookout for our R&D series. This is where I'm actually going to be going through and providing a statistical analysis of different weapons so you guys can see what is the best base weapon as we go through. And these are going to be taken from a good sample size because we know here, you guys all love stats, we love stats, is that you can't have a small sample size because then your standard deviation sucks. Your sample size is too small and your standard deviation is garbage. Insert that really nerdy meme right there. And we're also going to be doing an R&D series on Marvel. Much. It's so fire. Anyone who doesn't get it is probably not taking a stats class, and they're like, I don't get it, you bunch of nerds. That's why we're here. We live for the nerdy stuff. But we're also going to be doing an R&D series on Marvel Snap as well, where we test out different deck compositions as well. The first one's actually already recorded. It just needs to be edited and produced fully, and then it actually will hopefully be launching this coming week. So make sure you guys keep your eyes and ears open for those, because we're going to be making a lot more content coming your way as well. But Marvel Snap, I wanted to throw that in there. The piece of news that's actually related to that is every month they do a new season. The April season is Animals Assemble, and the new card was Hitmonkey, with a ton of other cards and variants, I should say, in there as well. And so far, I didn't think Hitmonkey was going to be that cool, but I've actually seen some gameplay of him, and people are using him pretty creatively and strategically. So better than initially anticipated. All right, guys. This is a long one. Thank you guys for sticking with us, but we got through 2 episodes of The Bad Batch here today. Thank you guys so much for watching. You're all beautiful. You're all handsome. We love every single one of you. So make sure you guys leave us theories in the comments. If you guys have got stuff that we're talking about, whether or not that's gaming theories, Star Wars theories, Warhammer theories, whatever it is, leave it in the comments here, guys. You guys can also find us on Twitter and Instagram. Please tag us in pictures of like any of your models or hobby work that you guys have on. Let us shout you out, guys. Let us see like what you guys are getting up to. And if you guys have any questions or anything,
we will retweet anything you send us. Well, not anything. I shouldn't say that. I cannot be that general on the internet. We will retweet anything you send us within reason.
That immediately will get abused. So if you guys have any questions or anything for us, shoot us an email at talkabouttatooine@gmail.com. We'd love to feature any questions you guys have on air and just get you guys as part of the conversation. So make sure to subscribe, like this video so that the algorithmic overlords will slice this video into the feeds of other like-minded folks. Until next time, may the force be with you.